Hello, everybody. Hello. Referring to the opening remarks, I would like to say, hello, Rupa's tribe. You're a fantastic tribe, and I never have an occasion, and believe me, I have many occasions to stand at front, or rather sitting, like in this situation, at front of many audience, but this one is really exceptional. I never see so many representatives of powerful, devoted ladies, leaders, decision makers, entrepreneurs. So please, big applause for the organizers and for your all attendance. Thank you. Now I feel also better. I don't know was it funny or not, but it's time to focus on really important issues. And before we started, and before I present this discussion speakers, let me say, probably, nevertheless, is it travel or not? But I think that since last Monday inauguration in Washington, we have quite completely different landscape. Probably the most exceptional and the most unpredictable since, for instance, from my perspective, the falling of Berlin Wall. What does it mean? That means if you are exist in unpredictable world, the level of risk are higher. What does it mean? That means that our security, social security, personal security, economical security, as many securities as you wish, are in a higher danger than before. So I believe that discussion would be very interesting. So now it's time to introduce the former Prime Minister of New Zealand, Helen Clark. Thank you for having me here. Aleksandra Gajewska, Minister of Labour of Poland. And Fawzia Koofi, first woman deputy speaker of parliament in Afghanistan and president of Women for Afghanistan. For the beginning, and referring to that, my thoughts about what's changed just so not far away and not many hours away. I got an open question to all of you ladies. As you know from many reports, 60 million women and girls are now affected by the war, and it stands for about 50% higher numbers than just a decade ago. So how can women's leadership be leveraged to address the escalating impact of conflicts women worldwide? What can we, what can you do? Helen.
Greetings, everyone. And as our moderator just said, we are indeed in uncertain times and uncharted territory, although this is not the first time the United States has gone into an isolationist phase, if I could put it that way, and the rest of the world will have to get on with its business and hope that there'll come a time when the US will engage again. But I fully recognise the sort of red flags that you as moderator from Poland and our Deputy Minister of Labour from Poland will see, because what happens with Ukraine is directly relevant to your security and to broader European security. So these are troubling times. So yes, you cited the recent UN report that more than 600 million women and girls are now affected by war, which is up 50% from a decade ago. And we only need to turn on a news report for 2 minutes and we will see more about the horrific plight of women and girls in so many situations. We have very senior Afghanistan woman representative with us. We know the particular form of gender apartheid that your fellow women, sister women in Afghanistan are subjected to. We think of Gaza. We think of the toll on women and children in Ukraine. We think of Sudan. We think of many places. So what can we do? How do we leverage women's leadership? Well, firstly, I think we need to get in behind the campaign for a woman Secretary General of the United Nations. That will happen next year. Next year, the member states of the UN will select that person. In reality, the selection is made by agreement between the permanent 5 members of the Security Council, which is not particularly encouraging when you think about it. But there needs to be huge pressure on member states for them to put pressure on those who really make the decision. And I think a woman Secretary General would bring new perspectives to the role of Secretary General, not least around the women, peace and security agenda. The second point to make is that at the United Nations, where you have the premier forum on peace and security in the Security Council, which of course does not perform particularly well, but you have this big diplomatic corps of permanent representatives. Generally, it's my understanding the number of women permanent representatives is only ever around 20%. So again, for pressure back home, we need more women diplomats, and we need more of them sent to multilateral diplomacy where they could make more of a difference with the skills they have. We need more governments with women leadership too, because again, women do bring different perspectives. Not every woman is helpful in this respect, but many women leaders have been forceful voices for peace and for diplomacy. My final point would be we just need less authoritarian leaders who cast us all, onto winds of conflict and strife. We need more women's leadership overall. Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's really, really ambitious goal, but I think it's fully, really accomplished. Everything is in our hands, and this is very, very worthwhile remark. Thank you for it, Aleksandra. From your perspective, what are the administrative tools or other things, I don't know what kind of things, to improve the situation and safetyness on many like of women around the world?
It's been always a challenge, but now, as you mentioned, there's like much bigger challenge we were all facing. So we have to remember that we've been through a lot. So we have the experience, we have the history. I come from Poland. I live in Warsaw, the capital of Poland, and my hometown is a symbol of resilience and sacrifice. Up to 80% of the urban space was destroyed in Warsaw. And we were facing this, still people who were involved in the largest freedom uprising in Europe, they still live. So we have this in mind. This is like a living history monument. And they have to give us the motivation and the understanding of what happened. So we have to take their knowledge and use it nowadays. So as it was also mentioned by the Prime Minister, we have the Russian aggression on Ukraine. It's on our border. Those are our neighbors. And we can observe the great impact on conflict on women, as so many women came to Poland looking for safety, security for their families. So we have to, and as from my point of view, women and children are again victims and disproportionately affected by all those conflicts. It's not only about Ukraine, but this is also about Gaza. This is also in the West. So we have to have this woman leadership as essential in addressing those challenges. Why? Because we don't need the representation of women. We don't want to be present there, but we want women in the decision-making process. Why? Because we want to prioritize in the agenda and secure, prioritize the solutions that involves peace, safety, stabilization, and equality for all of us. So we can use the examples of the Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern from New Zealand. We can use Sanna Marin example, and Ursula von der Leyen now. So we have this strong leadership of women, and we have to empower women in decision making. We have to invest in women potential, but we also have to remember that we have to also support war-affected women, because now we're gonna get through another crisis, because as we just said, disproportionately they are more affected than anyone because of the conflicts we have on our borders and next to us. So this is the situation every administration has to deal with. We can talk, and I know we're gonna talk about the details in the next minutes, but we really have to focus on those three fundamental issues.
Thank you, Aleksandra, for remember about the inflows on massive scale of the Ukrainian women, because it was for the first months, and even till today, absolutely something incredible if you realize that you are still in the center of the Europe. So that completely changed mind, I hope, not only of women. Thank you. And we got a completely different experience depending from which corner of the globe we came here. There are different perspectives in New Zealand, different here. The situation of Polish women is different than in Afghanistan. So this perfect possibilities to deliberate about our insights from each of those mentioned corners. So, Fawzia, question to you is how can women's leadership be integrated into peace negotiation to better address their needs?
Thank you. Good morning, everyone. I'm absolutely delighted to be in this conversation. Thank you, Rupa, for bringing different voices to this room, and it's great to have this panel moderated by a man, and I'm delighted to share this with stage with Hellen and yourself. Although I have been for 13 years now, my name was as a young global leader for World Economic Forum, and I hold many titles, Nobel Peace Prize, I don't know, favorite nominee, Forbes 50 woman, BBC 100 woman, and you name it, 100 titles. But it's the first time I get this opportunity through the World Economic Forum Davos Woman Agenda to be in this room. And I think it's through this agenda that the reach is expanded, and we need to do more to bring unheard voices from the places where their voices need to be heard. And I'm delighted to have this chance to amplify the voices of 18 million plus Afghan women who are absolutely living under dire situation. But before I start, I would like to invite all of you, all the amazing women, and very few my brothers, the men who are in this room, obviously not many interest in this discussion. I would like to invite you for a second to put yourself in the place of women of Afghanistan. You were part of the progress of your country, not only leading political institutions like parliament, ministers, Minister of Technology, Minister of Women's Affairs, journalists, judges, civil society. Over time, over a few hours, all of a sudden you become nobody. You're suppressed to the walls of your home. You're no longer allowed to study, to go to university, to go to school, to work, to even do anything that makes you feel as a human being. Recently, even your voice is regarded as intimacy. You're not allowed to speak in public. You're not even allowed to speak with another woman more junior to you. Your house windows should be smaller because nobody from outside should see you. And all of this is done under the eyes of the world and under the name of our beautiful religion, which has nothing to do with this. And the world is silence, because women and human rights is never a strategic agenda unless our security is threatened. And we often fail to make the connection between human rights, women's rights, and security. We often forget to understand that women's presence in the rooms will make peace processes long-lasting, will make them inclusive, will make them beyond a paper that is a political agreement, will make the unheard wounds heal. We often forget that. I was listening to the conversation in the morning, and I was like, how can I resonate this conversation about AI and women leadership in the CEUs to the situation of women in Afghanistan? And Afghanistan is not the only country. It is definitely the only country where women are experiencing apartheid, but it's now happening in Libya because the growth of military extremism inspired many military extremist groups which endanger the global security. It's happening in Yemen. We don't know what's going to happen in Syria. I hope not, really. It's happening in many North African countries, and it will reach to the borders of Europe and US, as it did in 2001. So the more we are indifferent and the more we are in our own bubble, the more this world will become unjust for women. It is already an unjust world for women. So therefore, I think it is important, it's imperative to have women in the leadership, especially in the peace negotiations. That's why I negotiated with the Taliban. I sat across the table with them. It's important to bring women in the room, but it's also important, as you said, to give them the voice. So those who are working for the WPS agenda, Women, Peace and Security, having women in the room is one achievement. It's a challenge that we need to overcome because only 13% of the peace processes include women. 6% of them have women in the table. But once they are there, how much their voices are heard? Because then they are regarded as only representative of women, not representative of their country, not representative of, many other important issues and topics, including economy and security. So I think it's a global responsibility. We need today to make the global institutions work, and we need to make the people across the world, the unvoiced, the unheard people, believe these rules and orders. And so therefore, I would like to invite all of you to stand with those who are oppressed, because as Martin Luther King said, injustice anywhere could be a threat to justice everywhere. Our demand is very simple. Hold those who are committing violence, apartheid, in account, so that we believe that these international instruments exist, so that we believe ICC, ICJ, the UN Charter is to protect the human rights of everybody. Apartheid is not a big phenomenon to recognize in the case of Afghanistan, gender apartheid, how much it takes for your government to stand in this. We're tired of all these beautiful words. It's time for action. You have heard probably hundreds of statements in support of Afghan women. But last September, when we wanted to have the All-Afghan Women Summit, bringing 25 women from inside Afghanistan, which is not easy, from these villages, for women to be able to travel while they are not allowed to travel, 140 women, Afghan women from across the world, was not easy. No country was able to host us because they were afraid of Taliban. Finally, we managed to convince Albania, thanks to them, and eventually then Spain. But we are tired of all these statements because you think it's not our war. I mean, when I point out you mean international community, think it's not our war. The moment we become indifferent toward justice, we will be even further stronger hit by injustice.
Fawzia. I think the audience told everything I wanted to. And I have to admit that before today, I haven't had any occasion to meet the people sitting at the front of negotiation table with Taliban. So I know you, which is great. Thank you very much. Well, that was really powerful, yeah. Helen, back to the reality, for example, in the Ukraine, and we've got I think, but I not if enough, but we've got some decision made by the NATO 75th summit, and the decision made that they find a small quantity of money to address the women needs on the battlefield in Ukraine, to design and deliver the special equipment dedicated to the women, which are also on the front line. And my question is, what can be implemented globally to ensure women's active participation in defense sector, because it is also crucial?
Yes, when I looked at the question, I had sort of rather mixed feelings about it, as I obviously would prefer to support women in peacemaking roles. But of course I acknowledge that women do volunteer for armed forces, and that women are involved, including right up to the front line in Ukraine. And in that sense, of course, it's important that NATO has committed some money, pretty small sum actually, to ensuring that the gear that the women have is actually appropriate to their needs, because the men's gear just won't be designed for women, right? So, as I say, women do volunteer. They volunteer in my country and volunteer in many countries. And when they do, they should, have equal opportunity. I would note that in these confirmation hearings in the US Senate, there's a man who's been nominated for Defense Secretary who doesn't seem to believe that women should really be active at all. In New Zealand, there is now a woman Chief of Army for the first time ever, which is quite amazing, really, because women are not so well represented in the Army, and one has also been, in the past, Deputy Chief of Navy. So the women are going up the ranks. For peacekeeping forces, pursuant to the UN or various other agreements, actually having women deployed is quite important. Bangladesh has long had a lot of kudos for deploying women police in their peacekeeping components. And think about the situations that peacekeepers are going into. Often women and children on the front line, traumatized, affected. Having women who can relate to those women becomes incredibly important. And then, of course, there's the whole civilian side of defence. The defence departments, the national security councils. More women in these roles, bringing women's perspectives, would be very, very helpful as well. And these are not areas where women have been particularly numerous. Back to you.
Thank you. As we're talking about security, everybody in the room absolutely understand, I guess, that the security is not only about the personal security, the military security. There are many, many aspects, yeah? And I wonder, Aleksandra, how in Europe perspective we can adapt, for example, regulation at the area of work to support and accelerate the integration of women in roles related to the economy, social life, security.
As I mentioned, I come from Poland, and the eastern border of my country is the external border of European Union. You may know, but I'd like to underline it. In Ukraine, we have regular war action taking place. We have like hundreds of thousands of people coming to Poland, to each city in our country, looking for safety, looking for new home, looking for new perspectives. We have the hybrid war on our border with Belarus. And there's a regime of Lukashenko who is destabilizing our situation, and they want to go do it through the illegal, uncontrolled migration. So all of things that's happening, it brings like the feeling of being not secured enough. People in Poland need stabilization. They need safety. We're talking about security on our borders, and we've taken a lot of measures to achieve it. We're spending a record 4.7% of GDP on defense this year. So really, this is really important to understand that also in Europe, the situation has like really changed, and we as citizens of Poland, we are the citizens who really understand it, because the threat is like real. When there are bombs attacks on the cities of Ukraine, they sometimes get to our cities. So the people of Poland, they are really scared. So we are now at the beginning of this year, we took over the presidency of the Council in the European Union, and our slogan in this presidency is "Safety Europe," and we're going to talk about safety, the security, and everywhere, all the time. But as you just mentioned, we're gonna understand it differently, and we in this presidency, we want you all to try to understand it through the broader lens, like especially in the digital age. Warfare has changed. The security is not only about tanks, armies, weapons. This is also very important. You may admit it, but we have to. This is crucial, but we have to think about everyday security of our citizens, particularly women, children, families. We need the stabilization, we need the safety, and we need to feel it every day. So, so this is what we're bringing with the presidency, what we want to achieve, to have this understanding that this is not only militarily. This is also about families. So we're gonna talk about fighting disinformation and online violence. As we all sit here, we can also say that we know that in the age of AI and deepfake technologies, the content that is upcoming is like very dangerously accessible. Like everyone sitting in front of computer can produce material that can offend you, that can put you in the very uncomfortable position. But this is not the thing that is threatening. Women are mostly affected by these attacks, facing higher level of harassment online. We have the reports that show that 58% of girls have experienced online harassment, and that's why we need to face it, but we also have to educate, and this is the second thing what we have to invest in: education of girls, of women, like equips individuals. We want to that we need the skills that thrives a technology-driven economy. We want to be open to the future, to the challenges we're gonna face in the future. So that's why we have to concentrate on this. And at the last but not least, we also need to think about stabilization of the situation of the families. We want women to be active. We want women to be able to work, coming back to the work market, and we need to somehow organize it as possibilities for them, because when you give a birth to a child, this is very, very hard to get back to the market. And we need to invest in quality childcare, because this is what we women deal with. And we do it in Poland. We have a program, Active Parent, and each family who has a child in the age 1-3, they get like 400 euros to support their responsibilities of child care. But we need to talk about integration. We need to put it in the law. So we also like what European Union is doing, those directive on combating violence against women and domestic violence, Women on Board directive, and work-life balance directive. But really, we have to understand that the thing we're dealing with is not only the security and the understanding of the military position. We need to think about social care, about health care, and we need to think about the education. And I think you're gonna agree with me that this is so important. It is actually crucial.
Thank you very much. And because we are quite run of time, but I guess I can take some couple of minutes on me. So because I'm trying to listening, I decided to change last round question, because I heard a lot of you very interesting thoughts, and my final question would be: there in that room there will already appeared many interesting programs, initiatives, ideas, and I wonder, do we have the clue how to implement it into reality, how to move from planning to action? And you, Aleksandra, mentioned, for example, the Polish presidency in the European Union. Do you believe is a mechanism which could accelerate, for example, even one more things which is important from perspective of these discussions?
I strongly believe in it. Today, the Prime Minister of Poland, Donald Tusk, and European Parliament met with Roberta Metsola, and we are today presenting the priorities of the Polish presidency. And I strongly believe that we need to underline the prioritize, and we have to remember that safety, security is the most important thing now, and it's gonna be in all those themes. But as you said, the most important thing is going through planning, talking to actions, and we're gonna put everything in actions. We're gonna put everyone in one room, in one table, and we're gonna make the decisions, because Donald Tusk is a decision maker. And we're gonna have elections in May, presidency elections, and I hope that we're gonna decide, because this is the great decision, where we're going, what we're gonna achieve. If we are going deeper into populism and radicalism, or we are going toward equality, progress. So this is going to be a great decision. So this is action, and this is concrete.
Helen, how to push plans into the actions?
Well, I think if I bring it back to our sort of women's leadership theme, we need to get very concrete about supporting more women to come up to the top ranks of leadership. And I've sometimes said at forums like these, the door actually isn't sitting open for us. We have to push it open, and we have to create the support networks and the alliances which will make it possible. You know, all the issues we've been talking about, whether it's a horribly extreme situation in Afghanistan, or the low numbers of women in X, Y, and Z, it all speaks to deeper levels of inequality in the society. And to take those on, we need more women committed to equality in places where they can make a difference. And we all have a voice, you know, we all have access to a platform. We can all use it, and we need to be using it in the same direction to be demanding change.
Mm-hmm. Fawzia, what would be your, I don't know, idea, model of transform idea into the action, recipe? Give us something to powerful and.
Okay, powerful, and I don't know how much powerful the stories of sadness and pains and despair of women could be, but 2024 and 21st century, there are more women. Actually, there is a 50% increment in the number of women who are victim of conflict-related sexual violence than the century before. So we have a huge homework to do. And when we are talking about conflict-related sexual violence, it's not only in the active war. And as you rightly said, war is not just active battlefield. For us, war is beyond that. War for women is when they're not feeling safe in their homes, when they are not, when they're being suppressed by the government. So we need to make this world peaceful and in a way that every human beings feel safe. From words to action, as you said, I think education, because this is something we understand the value, and I think the military extremist groups also understand the value. That's why they target education as a first target. They are afraid of educated women. They are afraid of powerful women because they know an educated woman will never allow her son or daughter to pick up a gun and to pursue violence. That's why an educated woman definitely will encourage her children to pick up the mic, the pen, the paper, the power, the soft power, which is much more powerful to pursue the dreams. So therefore, we need to invest in education. I was the first girl in my family to be educated. And you know how? My father was an MP, member of parliament. He established the first female school in our village, but he never allowed my elder sisters to go because he was afraid of, losing the popular vote. But I went to school because my mother supported me. So in our lifetime, there is a woman who lifted us. So you are all powerful. You need to lift other women from the marginalized community. So I request you to support one Afghan woman in scholarship program.
Thank
if
you
you can. Education, invest today, tomorrow the world will be a better place for all of us. So if you support an education, a girl in scholarship, reach out to me because this is the right investment. Thank you.
Thank you. So going to the end, I'm really happy because what you are see, we have the tools. We know where are they. We know how they use. It's education, it's policy-making process, it's escalate the ideas, perfect. And at the very end, I very like the idea of Secretary General of United Nations, and I really empower you, women and men. Let's do this. Thank you.